Welcome, everyone. This is the second webinar hosted by the Legal Career Transitions Committee. Today, we are going to talk about the tips and tricks for starting your own practice. We have co-sponsors for this event, the Young Lawyers Division, and also the Women in the Profession. And just a minute about the Career Transitions Committee. We try to help different people decide if they want to switch careers. We have on our actual committee website, we have interviews by different people switching careers, resources for people who want to transition into different committees, want to downsize their practice, have tips for small and sole practitioners, and our prior webinar and our CLE. So let's get started. I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what each of them specialize in. Melissa, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Merchant Calvert. I am in my own law firm of the law offices of Melissa Merchant Calvert in Mercer, Pennsylvania. That's Mercer County. I have one other associate attorney that works for me. I have been in this practice since January of 2022. Prior to that, I was in a small firm also in Mercer with one other attorney, and I was there for about 10 years. I focus primarily on criminal law and family law. However, we're kind of a general practice and have a little bit of everything going on here. My other attorney started in November, so things are going well there, and I don't have any other staff members in my office, so we kind of do it all.
Lisa?
Good morning. My name is Lisa Watson. I have a law practice that I've had for the last 4 years. It is Watson Legal Services. I primarily focused on family law, also do some guardianship, dependency work, and a little bit of estate planning. I've been doing this for the last 4 years, but prior to that, I worked in government and nonprofit for about 20 years, primarily doing policy, social service work, helping individuals that are low income, trying to set policies for them to be able to help them better themselves in their lives. In my current role, primarily it is just me. I'm a true solo practitioner. I do utilize part-time or contracted staff as needed to assist in my day-to-day practice, but otherwise I am a true solo practitioner.
Andrea?
Hi, my name is Andrea Fitzsimmons. I am a solo practitioner at Fitzsimmons Law in York, Pennsylvania. I've been doing solo since 2021, which I just went back and was thinking about and was like, wow, it's been that long already. And prior to that, I was in a small firm of 3 attorneys and 2 staff. I work primarily in family law and do a lot of dependencies, as well as I do some incapacity work and guardianship. And then, whatever else kind of comes in the door of more related to that. So like adoptions and orphans court type matters. But yeah, it's been since 2021 and it's just, yes, me, myself, and I.
Go ahead, Adrienne.
I'm last. I'm Adrienne Sipes. I have Compass Estate Planning and Elder Law in Clearfield, which is Clinton County. Obviously, with the practice areas, estate planning, elder law, estate administration, do some court-appointed work when the judges tell me I have to. So those types of things. But I have either been in a partnership or a solo my entire career, which now, looking at the calendar, we're in year 14, which is crazy as well to look back, like Andrea said, but I have one staff support at my office.
Thank you. So why did you decide to start your own practice? Obviously, Adrienne, you've been doing it from beginning, but anybody else want to say why they started their own practice? What made them make that leap?
Well, if you would have asked me about 5 years ago if I would ever be in a small solo firm, I would have laughed at you and said absolutely no way. I clerked for a judge who pretty much did her own solo from when she started out as an attorney until she became a judge in our county, Judge Prendergast, and she adamantly wanted me to do that route, and I was like, never gonna happen. And when I went into the small firm that I was in for about 2 years, I started realizing, okay, I'm not really utilizing the staff. I am seeing the numbers that I'm bringing in. And at that place, I was getting paid a set salary. So I was like, I could be making a whole lot more doing this on my own. And and kind of figured out, it made more sense. I was at a point where I felt like I could do it. So I shocked everybody in COVID and I decided, okay, we're going to take the leap right after that.
Well, and I'll say for me, it was I was coming out of government working for the Commonwealth out of an appointed position, and I used it as an opportunity to really just decide how I could continue to do what I believe was the work that I've been doing for the last 20 plus years, which essentially was helping people. But I didn't really want to do it in the same way in which I was doing it, really being 10,000 feet from it, working on policy and things like that. I really wanted to work closer with a population of individuals to be able to help them. So I decided to start my own practice. I knew I did not want to work for anyone because it was clear to me that I wanted to maintain my autonomy and the flexibility that I knew I could have in establishing a firm. So that's how I came to make the decision to start my own practice.
Melissa, do you want to add anything?
Mine just kind of evolved that way. I was in a small firm with another attorney. I was there for almost 10 years. I was pretty much running that office, doing court work. Now, we did have between 1 to 3 members of a staff as far as clerical and things like that, depending on the time and how many employees we had at that time. Um, I just had my second baby. So it just kind of evolved where I was kind of heading out on my own.
So a lot of things when you start to open your own practice, you face a lot of different types of challenges, whether they're challenges within your own practice or business challenges. Let's talk a little bit about those types of challenges. Lisa, why don't you go first?
Well, I would say it's certainly a host of challenges one could encounter when you're first getting started. Even just figuring out how is my practice going to exist, and what form will it take, what shape will it be, and where will it be, which is an important thing because if you intend to have a brick and mortar space, you have to figure out where it can be, and it can be a challenge finding just the right location, finding a place that isn't as expensive because when you're starting, we'd like to say we all have tons of money when we're starting out on new business ventures and we have lots of savings that's just sitting and willing and ready for us to snatch it and use it in our businesses. But that's usually not the case, right? So we're also very fiscally conscious of how much we want to outlay, even when we're starting up a business, knowing that it'll take us some time to recover. So just trying to make those decisions as to where it's going to be, what type of space you're going to need if you're going to do it that way. Me, myself is primarily virtual, and I do majority of my business in a virtual manner. But if I needed to consider it, I would have to look at where and how I would actually establish it. And then also just all the things you need in your office to run it, running into challenges of figuring out how to manage your caseload, how to keep track of things, how to keep track of phone calls when you're just starting, right? The best thing you can have is lots of phone calls, but the worst case you can have is not having the resource to be able to handle all the calls and return them in a timely fashion. So just the organization of it is a challenge in the beginning. The management of just the business, not even the legal pieces, not even the cases, just the actual business of staying functional enough, remembering to pay yourself, depending on how your business structure is, it's simply remembering to pay yourself when you realize you have a bill due. All of those things are challenges and a lot more. I know I've faced all of them.
Adrienne, do you want to?
I think it's a lot of what Lisa said. It's just trying to figure out, how do I run a business? You know, they don't teach you how to run a business in law school. And, you know, unless you have been a business owner, you have no idea. And it's, okay, well, you know, I'm hiring someone, so I'm going to be looking at payroll. How the heck do I do that? Oh, do I need work comp insurance? Who do I go to for that? You know, malpractice insurance, like Lisa said, the essential equipment to run your office and what address you're going to use. Do I need to go get a PO box? Do I need to, you know, do I have a physical location? Here's my bank account. And if I'm handling, you know, client funds, I need my IOLTA account, and, you know, what are the necessary steps for that? So it's just trying to navigate all of those questions that I hadn't been exposed to, just never experiencing it before, never having a business, never, you know, really being involved with anyone that had started a business and could give guidance in that regard.
Now, Melissa, I know you had some more business experience, so why don't you tell us from your angle what you thought was harder?
Yeah, I mean, really, my biggest challenge was my anxiety of going out on my own and kind of what that would look like. I had a good structure kind of coming out of the prior firm that I was at. I was able to take contracts with me with the county. The county gave me additional contracts for court appointed work. So I kind of knew I had a baseline that would cover not only my pay, but my general expenses as well. I had a friend of the family that had an extra office space in his office. So I rented an office off of him fairly cheaply for on a monthly rental. And then shortly thereafter, I was able to buy my own office, which is the office I'm currently in. So I had kind of the experience of running a business, not only from doing it from the law firm perspective. My husband and I have two businesses on the side. So I was familiar kind of with all the tax implications, employee stuff. So I kind of had that baseline, which was a huge help in being able to just jump into basically a functional practice.
Andrea, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think, I mean, these ladies pretty much said you don't know what you don't know with starting a business part. I think the other piece, aside from, you know, expanding on what they've already kind of covered, was also kind of putting some boundaries in for myself. Because yes, I do a lot of court appointment work. And if you let me, I could sit and work. I've been in my office till 1 a.m. and, you know, still not accomplish everything. But realizing I also have to take care of myself and, you know, setting time. Okay, it's the weekend. I need to, you know, be able to focus on home and have, you know, my family and that sort of thing as well. So, yes, also being able to kind of put those boundaries into place in my head as well.
Okay, one of the questions we had online, and we've talked a little bit about it, was what do you do and how do you meet if you're working from home with clients? I know, well, obviously, Melissa, you have your own office. Lisa, I know you said you do virtual. Do you actually meet any people in person?
I do meet people in person. So my practice is primarily virtual. So probably 98% of the things I do are virtual because most of it is me doing my research, which it doesn't require me to be in person for, or me writing petitions or drafting petitions and things like that. The only times I'm really meeting with clients in person is if it's needed, meaning sometimes at the start of a relationship, they prefer to see me in person, although 90% of my clients don't. They actually are fine with me doing it virtual, which I'll set up a video conference much like this. But if they would prefer to meet in person, I rent out space as I need to meet with them in person, one-on-one. Also, anytime I have to get any wet signatures from any individuals, when it just can't be done electronically, then I will meet with them in person. But other than that, like I said, 98% of the time, we are either talking by phone or we are doing a video conference where I'm able to still conduct the business that I need to conduct that way.
Andrea, how about you? You have an office space, correct?
I do. I kind of do a mixture. So, like Lisa said, actually, a lot of my incoming clients, they're perfectly fine meeting by phone or by Zoom. And that's what I typically do for startup. But I do have a physical office. I got very fortunate. You know, our dependency bench down in York is pretty close knit. And I happen to know a couple of attorneys that were, you know, phasing out and retiring. And I essentially took over one of their offices. I just rent a single, room space, but then there's some community shared spaces, and there's 2 other dependency attorneys that are also in here. So it's nice to be able to also bounce off ideas. But if my clients want to meet in person, they can. I obviously have to kind of schedule it when I'm not in court or something along those lines. But otherwise, I'm primarily by Zoom for a lot of my meetings, and actually, a lot of my clients think it works better for them. So that makes it nice in that aspect.
Adrian?
If I was muted, sorry. Yeah, so I'm doing more phone conferences now than I ever have before. Obviously, when I do signings, I do them in person. I don't like to, send paperwork to have people sign with the state planning documents. I just prefer to have them in. But a lot of our initial calls or follow-ups to get, ask about, oh, did you decide, between your children who you wanted to be the executor, or, did you decide at age which you wanted your grandchild to actually receive something outright? Those types of questions we do handle over the telephone or through Zoom. So we do have the physical office space to meet with people if we would like to. On the elder law side of things, I do have a lot of clients where the parent is in a nursing home locally here, but the children may be out of state or maybe further away. That we do a lot over the phone and through email correspondence, those types of things. So I think it's much different than practice pre-COVID. I would have never probably thought about not meeting with a client in person prior to that, but I think it's just kind of the evolving landscape here, and clients are pretty willing to do that. It also works out better for them a lot of times to have us give them a call at noon when they're on their lunch break, that they're not having to do the travel time to get from their place of employment to our office and have to be back, that they can just close the door of their office and hop on the phone, and that's fine with them. So
Great, thank you. So one of the questions is about hiring employees. Now, Melissa, I know you're the one person who definitely has an employee. So how did you go about hiring an employee? How hard was it? What did you need to do?
So my associate attorney was out of our district attorney's office here in Mercer County. Her life was kind of changing a little bit. She had a baby in July of last year. She did not like the work environment in the district attorney's office, and I knew that. So I approached her before she came back from maternity leave to kind of see what her plans were. There was a lot of talk of her maybe not coming back because of the nature of the office and the pressures that the current DA has been putting on that office. And so we met, we kind of agreed on when she would come to work for me. Now, she wasn't supposed to start until January of this year. She ended up moving it up on me until November. So at that point, there was a lot of scrambling because I was only set up for myself at that time. So I had to go about getting new computers and kind of getting her office space set up in a short turnaround. But it was just, I knew her. I knew how she was in court. I knew kind of like just how organized she was, and I just thought she would be a great fit for someone to work with.
Did you have any paperwork you needed to do for the state for the
Yeah.
tax?
So I have to pay quarterly taxes for the employee I have. I have an accountant that I use that I will do her pay. I will withhold the taxes. And then at the end of the quarter, I just send everything over to them. And they basically were able to set up all my payment schedules and things I had to file with the state and everything like that. I don't have a payroll program, which I know some attorneys do. I actually use pretty much everything is Excel, which works out well for me, but I only have one employee. And like I said, I kind of had the experience on withholding from the other business that my husband and I have.
Speaking of using Excel, what kind of technology do you use in your practice? Do you have any kind of case management, timesheets, any of that kind of stuff?
I don't. I'm 100% Excel for my billing and kind of everything. I have the way that I kind of break my business up is into different categories of the practice of law. And then pretty much everything I have is digital. So I have all my files digitalized. I do keep paper files if I'm actively working on the case, but once I'm done working on the case, it's all digital.
Andrea, how do you do? Any kind of technology to use?
Yes, I actually use Clio. When I was starting up, I came from a firm that had one of the old dinosaur type, billing systems, and I knew immediately I was absolutely never wanting to use that again. So I did test out a couple of the different platforms. I know there's a few that are out there, and Clio seemed to work best for me. So I do a lot of my case management as well as billing for my clients through Clio. And they also give a discount for those of us that are members of the PA bar. So that was a nice added benefit as well.
Adrienne, do you have any software you use?
Yes, so I'm part of a estate planning organization that they actually have a client management system that they use, as well as drafting software that's integrated. That's where I kind of do the business management and kind of keep track of my files with to-do lists. It syncs with the calendar, pulls emails from, related to certain client matters. We'll put them in the file, in this case management system. We also use, I just use QuickBooks for the, keeping track of office expenses. That's also a way that we can send invoices to have clients pay us online through QuickBooks. As far as payroll, I used a program called Gusto, and they would file our quarterlies for us, would also do the payments, the direct deposits for them. We just have to log in, by the deadline each week and put hours in, which was pretty consistent. It can also track if you have vacation available or sick time, those types of benefit programs. Trying to think if we use anything else. For legal research, we just use CaseMaker through the PBA. That is a free member benefit that's offered. That's probably it. There's probably other ones that I'm just not thinking about because we utilize a couple different things, but those are the big ones.
Lisa, is there any other ones that you use?
There are. I started out using Excel, and then I switched from that, and I also started out with QuickBooks. I actually use a platform called Zoho. It is primarily designed as a business platform. It's a cloud-based platform. It has a lot of different features and functionality. And I have started using that for my law practice. It allows you to manage your cases. So it has a case management function through it. It also has its own bookkeeping module through it as well. So you can track all of your own bookkeeping, your expenses. You can give your accountant access to it. You can also do all of your client billing through this system as well. The system also allows you to do e-signings through it, as well as you can do video conference through it. So it's kind of an all-encompassing system that I have switched to. I've been with this system now for about 1.5 years. And it seems to be effective and working, because prior to that, I had a lot of different things in different places. Like I said, I was doing Excel, trying to track certain things. I was doing QuickBooks to try to track certain things. I had Zoom, I had Adobe, I had a lot of different things. And this suite seems to manage everything for me. So I use this in terms of managing my practice, and it allows me to manage not just the legal side of it, but the business side of it as well. I also use, I believe it's called MyFax, is an electronic faxing system, so that you don't have to have a physical fax machine present in your office. Is actual virtual. So if somebody, fax you information, that comes directly to your computer, so that way you get it all the time. And then, of course, for any type of phone technology, I use a software program that allows me to answer my phone via the web anywhere I am. And then it also sends me an email message directly, so that I can see if I miss a call or can't answer it. I can actually read my emails and check them that way.
Okay. We have some questions about malpractice insurance. Now, I know when I practiced prior to becoming a judge, I did have malpractice insurance, and I used something that was the PBA, ABA had. Does anybody have any suggestions about malpractice insurance?
I just use the PBA sponsored. You do get a discount for being a PBA member, so that's easiest thing that we don't have to dig in and do too much research. It's taken care of. We have a lot of attorneys in the state using it, so I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Exactly.
I think, so when I started out, like I said, I had gone into the office that had other dependency attorneys. And so I asked them who they use. They gave me their contact, and I, instead of, really doing a whole lot of research, I just signed up with them. Once I saw the price, I was like, yep, this is easy, not a problem.
And I also went through the PBA. I went through the PBA to utilize their resources to identify proper malpractice insurance and for a discounted price.
There were some questions too about encrypting and document retention. Does anybody have any suggestions other than the programs that they use regarding that issue? Okay, let me see. I've got other questions. Would you recommend taking advantage of a business credit line or loan to afford an associate attorney from the start, share your client caseload? Or would you wait until your business grows? Did any of you consider doing that?
I mean, with any debt, it's always good to wait until too late. I'm not a big debt person personally, so you don't need to go and start out with a $10,000 website and go pour a bunch into advertising and go hire people at X amount of dollars. You can start small. If you do need help, you can do part-time help to start out. But definitely don't break the bank, because you do have to pay that back. So I started until I felt I really needed support staff, and then I did have one part-time, then moved to full-time. So as your business grows, you can always add additional staff. You can always add additional attorneys to your practice, depending on what the breakdown is. But I think if you have resources available, try to use that as much as possible. But certainly, not everybody is in that position. I think I started out with $5,000 in my business account and went from there. And just kind of scraped by until things grew. But if you need to go take out that $5,000 loan, that's fine. If it's more than that, depending on what you need, then that's fine too.
I agree with that. In general, I think if you're able to just manage with what you have is best, obviously, because loans you have to pay back. And that can add an extra level of stress already when you're trying to start a new business. But I will say that if you are going to take out a loan, it is critically important that you then have a business plan. And this is where I think many business owners and legal professionals may fall short if you don't have that business background, to really think about how much do you need, but do some forecasting as to what your business is actually going to look like in terms of when you're going to be able to pay back that money. I think oftentimes when people think of starting a business, we start with the pie in the sky, right? We're thinking, oh, I'm starting my own law practice. I have this beautiful building in mind, this office, this suite of things that I need. And I need these things, not just that I want them. I need them for my practice. Well, the reality is you don't, right? You need yourself and you need a client. That's what you need for your practice. Everything else you can make work. So I think when you're thinking about getting started, it's critical that, for one, you really are thinking, what are the basic things I need to start my practice, and how much do they cost? And do I really not have enough money to self-fund those things until I get a few clients and can keep turning that money around? Because you also have to be good with your money, right? Every dollar you bring in, you can't give it all back out. You got to start to reserve some of it to be able to invest back in the business. But certainly in the beginning, you're going to be spending it to keep your business growing. So again, I think if you absolutely need it, yes, but you do need to do your due diligence and making sure that you have the proper documents that will tell you how much you need, when you're going to be able to pay it back, before you just go out and get a loan, and really understand what you truly need versus what you want to start your practice.
And I think Lisa has it best, is really knowing what it is that you do need. And obviously the big one being how you're bringing in that money. So you can't really, just go out on your own and expect clients to come to you. Yeah, you're gonna have some that manage to find your name from, whatever resource. But making sure you're putting yourself out there. Personally, I'm on court appointment lists, so that's how I get a lot of my current clientele is either court appointments or from a court appointment friend. And hey, she used you for this. She says you also do custody. Any chance you can help me out with my custody? Word of mouth is obviously very, very big. I have a lot of clients that, hey, this person was great. She got me this support, or she got me this for custody, and helping that way. Other attorneys and having those connections in whatever county you establish yourself in. A lot of people, hey, attorney so-and-so was not able to take my case. She's swamped right now, but she says you're great. Let me send them your way. I personally do not advertise my office like at all. I should probably do more of that in all fairness. But I've been able to really keep busy and maintain some of that because I have, a lot of great people that are going, hey, you know what? Attorney Fitzsimmons is fantastic. She's down in York. I don't handle York cases, but let me send you her contact information. Another thing that I would also recommend is getting involved with your bar association, because you'll make some of those connections, but also a lot of the bar associations have lawyer referral services that you can get signed up with, or even modest means programs. Yes, it'll be at a reduced rate for modest means, but at the same time, it's getting your name out there and getting you in the courthouse and doing cases, and that's only going to help you down the line of getting more.
Andrea, we had a couple questions specific to some of the stuff you talked about. And one was dealing with the case management program that you said you used. What was that case management program?
Mine specifically was Clio. I know that there's a few other out there. Time Matters. There's Law Pay. There's a few other ones that are out there, but the one that I personally use is Clio.
Okay. Adrian, what was yours?
I use it's Action Step, and it's through an organization that I'm part of, Lawyers with Purpose. They actually set up the template. You can get Action Step independently and set it up for yourself with whatever you would like. And then within it, Hot Docs is the drafting software that I use. If anyone has ever done a Wills for Heroes event, that's what they have used in the past, to generate documents, and you can customize to whatever your client needs are.
Okay. And somebody also asked about e-signature and notary options, and I figured you were the person that may use it, if anybody.
I actually do not. So most of our clients are in person. So we get in touch with them one way or the other. So I have not had experience in that realm.
Okay.
I've used e-signature just through my Zoho platform. I've also used it through the Adobe platform as well to collect signatures. I have not utilized the virtual notary option. When I've had the need to have a notary, I've had them come in person to actually do notarization of documents.
And I actually have my notary, so that makes it a little more convenient too, as well as our support staff. So, it's not that we're running around trying to find somebody, and, it's a lot easier to get witnesses to be there for documents than it is to get a notary. So I found it was better for me to be the notary, and then have, neighbors, friends, somebody come over to be witnesses if we have to have somebody out of the office serving those roles.
I know there was a question earlier. I think somebody might have answered it in the chat, but for everybody else, and I don't know if this is actually the platform that can answer it in general, but there were some questions about IOLTA accounts and when you need them and when you don't. Before you get into like any specifics, which you can obviously, is there a reference or a source that you would recommend somebody search out for that? Anybody have any?
I just automatically opened my IOLTA when I started my business. I knew the prior firm I was in, we had an IOLTA, and with my practice, especially doing the family law side of it, I use my IOLTA on a pretty regular basis with settlements, house sales, those types of things, to hold it until there's a resolution of the case as a whole.
And I think the question specifically dealt with flat rate. If I was doing, let's say for the wills and estates, I'm doing a will and I'm charging, $200 to do the will. Do I need an IOLTA account?
Yeah, so I jumped on and answered that one. Those typical things I don't, those obviously would not go through the IOLTA. They're, earned upon receipt, but I still have mine just for, there are instances where we may have to hold funds for an estate settlement or have to, that I do take something on a retainer basis, that's not within my, strict flat rate realms, and you can't intermingle those funds or you'll be in big trouble. So a lot of times, like I said, mine has what my initial deposit was to open the account in it, and that's it as the running balance. But it does get activity here and there, even flat rating things, because there are those situations that pop up. And if you don't use it, all that happens is your interest on your $25 deposit goes to help people. But it doesn't hurt to have it. I don't think banks are out closing IOLTA accounts for not having a lot of activities on them, but it's better to have it, if you need it, than have to rush to open one and get everything in place, because you just received a settlement fund that you need to disperse and you've got to open the account and cause a big headache. So my suggestion would be just to have one, just, if you anticipate any of those situations popping up. But even, like I said, in estate administration, sometimes that pops up. Like Melissa said, with real estate situations, that pops up. Obviously, client retainers, if you're being hired on a retainer basis, they are needed.
Let's talk a little bit about how the Bar Association, I know we've mentioned it a couple times, actively in being involved in like the local and the state bars. Does anybody have anything you want to add about how the Bar Association has helped you? Has it helped you with resources, programs? Melissa, why don't you start?
I mean, my local bar I'm very active in. And that's been huge for my practice because I've been able to form relationships with local attorneys like Andrea. I don't advertise at all. I take that back. I did one banner at a baseball field as a favor to another attorney. But other than that, I haven't done any advertising. I don't have a Facebook page. I don't have a website. Most of my business is, at least the private clients, because I do have court appointments, is word of mouth and referrals from other attorneys. So for me and my business, those relationships that I've been able to form through our local bar and even statewide through the PBA, because I've gotten referrals from attorneys in other counties too, has basically been the foundation of my practice.
Anybody else want to add to the Bar Association? And
Yes, I would say I've been a member of the Pennsylvania Bar since I was in law school, actually was when I joined. Then early on, I had met an attorney that just talked about how invaluable it was to be a part of it, just to start to develop relationships and to gain that experience of being around other attorneys and understanding what they're talking about, even while I was in law school. And I've maintained just that membership in that time. And I will say one of the biggest assets of it is being around other attorneys, honestly, and to have those discussions with them, because you're able to form friendships and you're able to develop mentoring relationships with some of the attorneys that have been practicing in your areas. And then you can ask questions of them to help you work through situations, especially when you are a solo and you may not have other individuals in your office that you can turn to. You've now developed and formed these relationships in these different groups within your bar association that you can turn to and get assistance with. So I found the relationships, the networking, just invaluable in the bar association.
I think to expand even on that, I mean, on top of that, being able to just have somebody to go bounce ideas off of, if you're a small solo, hey, this is a complicated kind of matter. It has this and this, and I'm thinking we're heading in this direction, but what is your idea with, and just being able to have somebody to kind of run facts and ideas over, is invaluable in of itself. So even if it's not, getting involved in a bunch of committees and, you know, levels of your local bar association, having those people, I think is valuable. I absolutely love both my county level bar association as well as the PBA. I know all three of us, oh, all four of us, I should say, sorry, are active members at the PBA level, but also probably in our county bars, we're very involved too. So getting to know other people, just to be able to even just bounce ideas off of or vent after a stressful case. You need those. And being a solo, sometimes I think that's the area that is the hardest, is not being able to have that additional person to run things over with sometimes.
I think also within the PBA, you know, section membership and having access to listserv to bounce ideas off of or go to, you know, the different retreats, symposiums, whatever, you know, that particular group calls them. But being able to network, being able to meet people that then you are comfortable asking those questions of, you know, when you get home from, you know, being in Hershey and, oh, I met this person from Philadelphia, but here I'm in the western part of the state, but I feel comfortable shooting them an email saying, hey, nice to meet you. We talked about needing this form. Can you send it? You know, and having it pretty quickly after that. So that there's also the solo and small firm section that, you know, helps with practice management, that you can bounce ideas off of people. And you'll find that most people that join, you know, these organizations and are active are willing to help, are willing to give advice, are willing to, you know, take the time to help others and guide you and kind of give tips and tricks that you may need to help you succeed, because it's not, you know, not the cutthroat profession that a lot of people make us out to be. A lot of us realize there's plenty of business to go around. We don't always have to be in competition. And, you know, I'm more than happy to help people that have questions at any time.
I know a couple of you said you don't do any kind of marketing, but there was a question about marketing. Does anybody, Lisa or Adrian, do you use any kind of marketing?
I'll do some here and there. A lot of mine is just kind of going out and meeting people. So I'll schedule meetings with financial advisors, in particular, accountants, insurance agents. You know, I'm in the nursing homes meeting with their business managers, just trying to establish those relationships, saying, hey, this is what I do. Here's how I can help you. Here's how I can help your clients. So that's a big part of it. I still have radio ads on just to have, you know, that brand recognition with Compass Estate Planning and Elder Law. You know, we'll do Facebook things every once in a while because, you know, it's cheap and it's, you know, sees a lot of people and you can target who your audience is, especially if we're having events. That's another way of marketing, is having free estate planning seminars that we'll host at a local restaurant and have people come in for 2 hours and, you know, go through a lot of scenarios and what you may need, what you may not need, things to think about. It also helps during the introductory meeting, if they come to that presentation, that they already have a background of what you're going to be talking about, and it's not, you know, being hit at all these different angles and having to make decisions, you know, on the spot. But, you know, as far as what I consider retail marketing, which would be, you know, your ads in the newspaper and radio, not as much as that, as just putting yourself out in the public. And, you know, I'll sponsor sports teams and that type of thing, just to, you know, have names on t-shirts and stuff, and usually because my kids are involved, but you know, those types of things, you know, making donations to different, you know, fundraising auctions and that type of thing, just to, you know, again, have people hearing the business name.
And I would agree for the most part that I have not paid for any marketing at all. I have not had the need to pay for any marketing, and all of my referrals have come from either clients, from family friends that have referred clients to me, and then from clients that I've had, and then from attorneys. I get a great bit of referrals from other attorneys that I have practiced with in a case where they have a case that they either can't do, not interested in doing, and they send me referrals as well. In terms of trying to get my name out there, a lot of it is done by networking, as Adrian said, being involved in different membership groups, PBA, Dauphin County Bar, because I'm in Dauphin County. I'm also a member of the Inn of Courts. I also do have a presence on certain sites like Avo, if you're familiar with them. Great networking site to put your information up on. You don't have to necessarily pay to advertise your business, but you can put your business information up there. You can also take the time to answer some questions, and through answering questions that people post, people will reach out to you, and I have gotten clients that way. I believe PA now has a similar system like that as well, where individuals can go online, they can ask legal questions, and you can register for that to sign up to answer some of those questions, with an opportunity of individuals then ultimately reaching out to you directly to gain your expertise and ultimately hire you that way as well. But I have not done any paid commercial advertising through radio or television or anything like that. I have not personally found it necessary to do so.
I had a couple questions about specific costs. And I don't know that anybody could actually sit there and put a dollar figure on how much you would spend for each year for your insurance and your technology, office space, those kind of things. Would you have a ballpark figure for basic costs that you think somebody would be out of pocket?
Insurance is hard because it depends on your practice area. So I know mine's higher with doing estates, doing a lot of trust work, in particular estate administration. I think I'm around 2,800 a year as a solo and with one employee, but that may be, I can't quote that off the top of my head, but I think that's the ballpark. I can pull it up here, but I have my screen. So
Malpractice though also depends on how long you've kind of been in practice. So like mine was higher when I was actually in the firm because I was there 10 years. When I started my own, it went from the date that I started my own practice. So it was actually a lower amount starting out, and then it increases on a yearly basis, at least for mine.
Mine as well. I think mine is somewhere around 1,600 or so. I think it is between 1,600 to 1,800 a year, but it has increased each year. But that is what it is now. But it really does depend on your practice area, your years of experience, what type of law, it depends on a number of things. Even in terms of giving a ballpark of expenses, that's so hard to do, right? Because it depends on how you're setting up your practice. Because if you're planning on renting a space, well, I don't rent space except for as needed. So you need to figure out what that cost will be. I can tell you for general things that I pay for on a monthly basis, my case management, my total system that I use, Zoho, I only pay $45 a month for that. Pay $45 a month for that. And that encompasses all the things that I said, from my case management, my billing, my counting, my bookkeeping, my video conferencing, all of those types of things. If you wanted to add on Adobe or something in addition to that, because you're more comfortable, that's probably going to cost you about $15 a month. If you decide you want to go with Zoom or something like that, I think you can get, when I used to have it, it was about a year subscription, maybe for about $200, $250 a year, maybe, to be able to have those things. I don't know, unfortunately, what the current rate is of real estate or monthly rental would be. I will tell you, in terms of renting space ad hoc, you can get space ad hoc as you need it for as low as $15 an hour, all the way up to a full conference room, full functional business space used with, Wi-Fi and anything you would need, for a minimum of $15 an hour starting at. And then factoring that in as well. And then you just have to, obviously have money available for, as you're driving to visit clients, if you have to pay for parking. So you need to keep some sort of petty cash available to pay for those things based on the type of work that you actually do. I do a lot of litigation and courtroom work, so I'm constantly having to pay to park and parking tickets too at times. You have to account for that, unfortunately, when that happens. So it really just depends on how you plan on running your practice and do your business. But those are some basic things off the top of my head I can think of.
And also where your business is located. I think prices in Mercer County are probably a lot cheaper than if you're in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. When I started out the office I was renting, I paid $300 a month. My mortgage is only $700 a month. So it really just depends, I think, on the area that you're planning on practicing in. If you're more in a rural county, it's going to be cheaper than if you're in the city.
It depends on what materials you're using too. I mean, I use a lot of paper. We do, estate planning binders for everybody. So I'm buying binders like constantly. We do more wear and tear on our copy machines and printers and that type of thing than probably somebody that maybe is doing, a criminal case or a family law case, and so I think those types of costs are hard to estimate too, that you don't necessarily think of. You don't think, oh, I have to go get a couple cases of paper this month, and here they are at $60 a case. Watch Staples and Office Depot; they'll do specials for you. But just getting a little bit fancier, paper for your final products for clients and that type of thing is an expense. And I have a lot into that organization. I spoke of with my case management software and everything. It's about $1,600 a month. But I know from both the resources I have with that and just kind of learning tools and what I'm getting out of it. To me, that's worth it. Most people's jaw drop when I tell them that that's what mine costs. But that doesn't have to be how you approach things by any means.
Okay, is there a pitfall that you wish you could have avoided when you first started out? And what information do you wish you knew in order to avoid any pitfalls? Melissa, anything you want
I mean, I really don't. I mean, I think starting out on my own was probably the best decision I made, personally, professionally, and for my family, with the flexibility that it gives me. But as I stated before, I had a base to go out on my own. I just didn't start from scratch on everything.
I wanted, well, you talked about your family. You have 3 children, right? And
Yes.
how are you able to balance the work-life relationship with them?
I mean, with my practice, I mean, I can't control my court schedule, obviously. When I have to be in court, I have to be in court. But I've been able to kind of coordinate everything else so that I can take my children's birthdays off, or if I have to run them to the doctor, or last week I had to go pick my son up at school because he had a fever. So with having my own practice, I don't have anyone besides the judges that I have to ask if I need to run out. And I can take days off that my kids have off. In my old firm, we didn't, unless it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, those types of holidays, we worked on like Martin Luther King Day or President's Day. We were in the office. So I've been able to structure my practice that if my kids are off for those holidays, I'm off too.
Adrienne, you have children also, correct?
Yes, and that's one I absolutely love the practice areas that I'm in, just with the clientele and especially the elder law part of it. But one of the reasons I like this practice area is I'm in control of my schedule. I looked earlier today. I have been in court 45 minutes this entire year, and we're in March. So, I'm not at the mercy of the courts. And if I know that, I'm the room mom for preschool. So when we know that, hey, it's going to be a party day this morning or this afternoon, I need to have that time blocked off, that's perfectly fine. Or if the school calls and says, hey, can we use you as an extra pair of hands for this? I'm more than happy to do that. With that being said, you still have to work. You still have to make ends meet. So that is kind of the hard part of being a solo, is if we're not in the office, we're not making money. So it may be great to go take a week off to go on vacation, but I know when I get back, if I'm not, essentially working through my vacation and trying to return phone calls or trying to draft some documents while I'm there, I'm going to be working until 2 a.m. the next week when I get back, or even before you leave. It's not uncommon that if I have a PBA meeting that I'm gone for a couple days, or I'm going on vacation, that the night before I'm, at the office till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's just me. It feels like I have to have everything out the door, because if I'm not here, things aren't able to get done. So, it's a balance, of course. They say work-life balance for a reason, but I really like the flexibility that this practice area affords me, based on the time I can spend with my kids.
Any pitfalls that you would have wished you knew about or tried to avoid?
I really would have done more things like this, actually, to try to get advice and try to see how it's done. Especially, as things have changed. I know, when I got to a point where I was not, where I was, a solo, but I was running office space somewhere else, that attorney would just be appalled if I was not in that office from, 8:30 to 5 every day. He said, what, you're going home for the afternoon? I'm like, I have a laptop. I can go, my kids are off school for the afternoon. I can do some work tonight and it's okay. I can be gone. And that was just appalling that I would not be in the building, just with what the mindset is. But like I said, things have changed and, saying, hey, if you're starting out or you've started out, in the last couple of years, how did this work for you? And it's not a one size fit all approach, based on practice area, based on your geographic location, based on, what type of clientele you're serving, everything's going to look different. But, if you take advantage of resources, I kind of tried to figure it out as I went and had people in different industries trying to tell me, how to run a law practice. And that didn't necessarily translate well. So just like I said, the lack of knowledge and seeking out these types of resources and people that are able to help you would have been a game changer for me at the time.
Andrea, what was pitfalls or would you wish you could avoid?
I don't necessarily think I have anything major. I know I think just one thing, and I kind of had just messaged somebody in answering their question. I had started out as an LLC, just for business purposes. I, had talked to some other attorneys that started out. That's what, they had done. And I was like, okay. But then when I actually sat down with my accountant, after, my first 6 months, I was like, here's everything that's going on. Here's, what I'm doing and income and all of that kind of stuff. He's like, honestly, looking at all of this, he's like, it actually makes more sense for you to be an S corporation just with the tax benefits and having that perspective of, because this is things I don't necessarily know. And I'm not a tax specialist. I took the class in law school, but honestly, it probably flew right out of my mind after bar exam was done. So yeah, being able to sit down and have a different perspective from just the business side was nice, because I'm not that business person. And yeah, you don't know what you necessarily don't know. And so he was like, well, with everything you're already doing, he's like, it actually makes more sense and would benefit you to be an S corporation. And then I kind of had sent a few other people his way, and I had found out from them, they were like, oh yeah, no, it makes more sense for us to be S corporations too. So
Lisa.
I would say somewhat similar to what Adrian said in terms of just reaching out in more forums like this and gathering more information specific to other firms, because even starting out with some of the simpler things like tracking things in Excel and all those things, honestly, I wish I would have started out the gate with some of the more professional software, some of the more systems in place. And I think had I taken a little more time and just really just navigated through everything that I would need, not everything, because we always know we're going to miss some things, I would have done them first, because it did take me some time to then transition those things over and to just make sure I didn't miss anything, that I wasn't leaving anything on the table now that it was becoming more organized. Even in terms of identifying an accountant, was somewhat new for me, and is only my undergraduate degree is in accounting. So, I have actually done my own taxes for many, many years. But obviously, when I decided to form a business, I said, well, I'm going to get an accountant now because I want to make sure that everything from a business perspective is as it needs to be. And just starting out that way. And for the first year, I didn't. For the first year, I still did my own business accounting, which was fine. But then because it took me time to find just that accountant. So I wish I would have just kind of had some of those things set up in the beginning, because I think we as attorneys, we don't always take our own advice sometimes. We tell people, well, if you're setting up a business, first thing you need to do is get an accountant, you need to get a lawyer, right? But we don't necessarily do that. We don't necessarily go get our attorney, to sit down with us and talk to us to make sure we're making the right decision, even when we're talking about, as Andrea said, the startup of our business and the best way to start it up, and then have an accountant come alongside to say, well, yeah, there are reasons that it makes sense for you to start your business this way or that way. So I think some of those things would have been very helpful to have in the beginning, and just a wider net of talking to more people that were already doing it.
And we have one last question. Hopefully we can get it in. Does anyone have a succession plan, and how did you find somebody to fill in for you? I have a friend who's in a small county, and I know she's struggling to find somebody to take over. So to make the appointment for a succession plan. Does anybody have that? I saw some nodding. So.
Yeah, I do. I just have one of the attorneys as one of those members of the estate planning organization that I'm with. They're not, they're not within an hour of us, but I have, if something happens, are you willing to take these clients? And we use the same system, we use the same processes for how we handle things. So that made it easy. So I'd probably say find someone that has a very similar similar practice to you, similar, using the same software, using the same documentation. That's where it's, very important to keep good records of everything, to keep a good, management system instead of trying to just, I'll throw these papers over here and somebody can figure it out if I happen to get in a car accident tomorrow. It's, those things happen. And unfortunately, I see it a lot with my practice where bad things happen, and you just have to be prepared for that. But that'd be my best advice. Find someone, a similar practice, similar systems, the processes that, you would feel comfortable with your clients, taking care of your clients once you're gone, if you're gone.
I think that's one of my biggest recommendations is kind of finding your group, like finding like somebody else that you can rely on and talk with, and that person that you vent to after a difficult hearing, or that sort of thing, because a lot of times they kind of end up being your succession planning as well, at least in my area. So yeah, I mean, the two other girls that are also in my office, they came in after me because of the recommendation of, hey, we have office space, it's fairly cheap and it's right across from the courthouse, and they're also my succession planning as okay, we all agree. And it has come up of, okay, this person, her father just passed away, we need to all kind of pitch in and help cover cases and do what we need to do, so that she can figure out, and get her feet underneath of her. And obviously that's not to the point of, she was in a car accident and can't be there herself, but even just for the basic levels, my husband's from Chile. I went to Chile for 2.5 weeks, and while I did manage to do a lot of emails and even attended a hearing from Chile, having somebody here on the ground that could step in when needed, so that I, didn't have to panic my entire vacation and worry about clients, was also helpful. So I think a lot of that also comes from your local bar associations. And I do believe, from what I heard at a recent PBA event, that even some of the local bar associations have succession planning available at their local county level, where it's something that you can pay into, and then they can help set you up with a resource. So, but for everybody that isn't aware, my understanding is there's a potential that succession planning is going to be coming down the pipeline as a requirement, instead of a strongly suggested idea, and it's going to be more of a requirement. So it is something that you need to be thinking of when setting yourself up.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I believe if I'm not mistaken, as part of my malpractice insurance, I had to identify who my person is, who my successor is. So I had to have one in mind when I got my initial malpractice insurance, and every year since then. So mine happens to be with a very good friend of mine that also has a practice and does similar work. So, and we also use the same software programs and everything, which also makes it very easy to be able to transfer information and or cases to if I need to. So that was already established. And I actually established that before I set up my practice, because I was asking questions about how does this work? If something happens to me because I'm a solo, who does this? Who actually picks this up? Who finishes and carries this out? So we had those conversations even before I physically started my practice. And so she is my actual successor in my succession plan.
Great. Well, I think I got lost there for a second because my whole screen went blank. But I wanted to say our time is up, and I thank all of our participants and our panelists, especially the panelists, for volunteering to do this and adding insight for all the participants. And hopefully, if you missed something or you have a friend or you want to go back, you can catch us again on our website. Thank you.